put out. And joining us now is Pat Buchanan. You know him, you love him. He's, of course, commentator, author, syndicated columnist. You see him on the McLaughlin Group every week. And, of course, former Reagan Communications Director. And, Pat, welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it.
Well, it's good to talk to you again. Of course, we booked this before today's news. Your reflections, your thoughts of Margaret Thatcher and her relationship with President Reagan.
Well, that was a wonderful quote you just had there. How many people today would say, look, we are all unequal, we're all different, and each of us has a right to its own individuality, and the socialists will never be right. She's a very courageous woman. She had, as she said herself, I'm not a consensus politician, I'm a conviction politician. She was deeply rooted in the time and place when she grew up in World War II. She was British to the core. And she was a kindred soul to Ronald Reagan. I think they both shared the middle-class values and views and convictions and beliefs, and they both stood by them when they were unpopular, and they both were fortunate to come to power when their respective countries were saying, it's time we tried something like this because everything else is not working. I think she read Gorbachev exactly right. She said early on, this is a man I can do business with before he was in power. And she and Reagan presided over the Western victory in the Cold War. They were the two figures most responsible for that victory. I would only add John Paul II.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very well said. And we just played a tape of her visiting Reagan at the ranch back in, I think, 1992, and it was just so heartwarming to see. And he's explaining to her, he says, in the morning we ride, and then we do this. And she was saying, you really need a sanctuary. You know, government is one thing, but that's gone, and this is always going to be here. And it was just so heartwarming to see them interact kind of off the cuff in a private setting.
Well, and they were both speaking from the heart about what they loved and who they were, and that's what came through in that meeting between the two of them. And you could see Ronald Reagan when we had these international summits, and he would not go over and embrace the Italian fellow or the French fellow. He would go right over to Margaret Thatcher, the first one, and as though he were coming to, and that was his sister and that was his friend.
Right.
In the gathering. It's not that he was hostile to the others, but he just had a tremendous natural affinity and liking for her and respect for her, and he lit up when he saw her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was heartfelt. It was warm. You could tell that without a doubt. I want to talk to you about you're in the media and you've been a victim of the media as much as anybody's been a victim of the media. And I want to talk about just briefly her legacy. We already have these vicious tweets, these vicious Facebook postings, these vicious remarks from people on the left in the media, as you might expect or might not. The Argentine paper has a headline: Thatcher the drunk. We talked about this with Nigel Evans, the current Deputy Speaker of the British Parliament, and he just said these people will come and go, but Margaret Thatcher's legacy will live on. I'm sure you agree.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, the Argentines tried to take the Falklands by force, and Margaret Thatcher sent that task force down there, the carrier-based task force, and took them back. And she did exactly what she had a right to do. And as a result of that, the junta down there in Argentina was thrown out of office. And so I don't doubt that they're angry with her. But listen, Steve, anyone who's done anything in their whole life significant, who has really stood up for what they believed in, is going to have enemies, are going to have people attacking them, and often by the intensity of the attack tells you the effectiveness of how well you're doing. It's an old saying in politics, if you're picking up flack, you're probably over the target.
Yeah, very true. We're talking to Pat Buchanan here on the Steve Malzberg Show. All right, sir, let me ask you a few questions before we get to North Korea and what you said on McLaughlin over the weekend. CNN is thinking about, or at least reportedly, reestablishing and recreating Crossfire. Now, of course, for so many years, you were the co-host of Crossfire. I was privileged to be a guest a couple of times on Crossfire. Do you think it's a good idea? Has CNN approached you or talked to you at all?
No, they haven't approached me or talked to me, but I think it might be a good idea. You know, I was on Crossfire from 1982 through into 1999, and then I took 3 leaves of absence, one of them to go to work for Ronald Reagan in the White House, and 2 to run for president against George H.W. Bush and then against Bob Dole. But I really enjoyed those years. I think it was a great show. It was the #1 rated show on Crossfire. And for all the years I was there, and sometimes we would trade the lead back with Larry King. But it was a great show, and I liked the way we had it originally, which was very often one guest and us coming at him from both sides.
Right.
And doing it intensively. And I thought it was a terrific show, and so did the country, and the ratings were phenomenal. Of course, we didn't have too much competition.
Right. Right. Now you got the other networks, but
now you got some. But I think it might be a good idea, and I would encourage Zucker to give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, shying away, there really is a need because there's not really a show. Certainly, MSNBC, your more recent old stomping ground, doesn't have any true conservatives. I mean, Joe Scarborough paints himself as one, but I don't buy that, and they don't look for dissent at all. And Fox, does have both sides of an issue, but they don't have a show that delves into it with both sides with two co-hosts that are opposite. And it seems like there's a lacking of that in really media wide.
Well, there was a unique format. A Crossfire was, and it was. Ted Turner was. Let me say this: Ted Turner and I might not have agreed politically, but he's a wonderful boss. Whenever you got under fire and people were saying, "Shut him down, get rid of that guy," Ted would come to the rescue, and I really liked him. And he stood behind that show for all those years, and his team created it, and he came on it himself. And I do think that's right. If you get the right, see what Michael Kinsley and I and Braden and I disagreed on almost everything, and I think that was good, so we could disagree with each other and then go after the single guest. During the Gulf War, for example, when we both opposed the Gulf War, what we did was we'd bring on two guests who supported it.
Right.
And then go after a conservative and a liberal who supported it, and then we'd go after them. So I thought it came off very well, and one thing I disagreed with, of course I wasn't there when it happened, is when they put it in front of a live audience, then people start playing with the one-liners to the live audience rather than to the audience in the studio to get the laughs and the applause and all the rest of it. And I'm not sure that's that effective. I think you want to do it for the audience at home to let them see the battle going on and the exchange going on. One of the drawbacks of it, Steve, was occasionally even my father would say, "Why don't you let them finish what they're saying?"
That's what people still say to me sometimes. So, Pat, if they came a calling, would you be, if Jeff Zucker's listening, you interested?
Well, Crossfire for seniors.
Oh, come on. I'll take that as a yes. All right.
No, I don't know that I'm up to it these days.
Well, I think you are. Let me ask you about North Korea. You brought up a word. Many years ago, gosh, I think 2001 or whatever, I said something about how Yasser Arafat, that it would be nice if someone took him out. And I got to tell you, I was working at WABC Radio at the time, owned by Disney at the time, and I took such flack. I can't tell you the ruckus it caused. I went on vacation, and I got phone calls from management. What did you say? What? I said, the guy's a terrorist. I said, what did I say? Oh, but he's an elected leader of the people. Well, and then subsequently, a few months later, so I guess it was 01, 9/11 happened. If I had gotten fired for saying that and then 9/11 happened, I really wouldn't have been able to live with myself. But having said that, I mean, you brought up what you said, I think, was that if Kim Jong-il, he will threaten the U.S., threaten our bases in the region, in the Koreas, and in that area, unless he's taken out or overthrown. And I think you might have said assassinated. And people's eyebrows raised all over the McLaughlin group.
Well, McLaughlin said, I think McLaughlin said assassinated.
Okay.
And I didn't agree with it. In other words, I didn't say the same thing. I did say this, that, God forbid that there should be an all-out war, but if there is an all-out war, I think you have to go for regime change of the regime in North Korea. I mean, you can't fight a war with them and get thousands of people killed and have that regime remain in power. And I see where John Kerry said the same thing. But no, I don't believe I endorsed assassination. I haven't been called yet on it.
Well, no. Okay, if you haven't been called, I'm trying to look. I know we have the cut somewhere. But so I mean, this is
I would have, because I don't know what your reaction would be doing something. But I will say that would say this: if someone asked me, because I said, look, I have felt for a long time South Korea can handle the North after the Cold War is over. The Soviet Union's out of there, the Chinese are out of there, and I think we ought to move offshore. But you can't get out of there now. I mean, right when this crisis is unfolding, and I do think that the United States. If they're prepared to fire a missile, the North Koreans, and if we had any inkling that it had a nuclear weapon, I would certainly make a preemptive strike on something like that.
Right. No, it could get bad. It certainly could get bad. And I love when our government says we expect them to fire some kind of missile this week. It's like, okay, yeah, we're just waiting for them to fire something this week. It's not too comforting, I got to tell you. I don't know exactly what the.
Well, I don't think he's got a nuclear warhead, Steve. I don't think they've married the two. I'm almost certain.
Right.
And they've fired him before.
But we don't know. I mean,
7 of them, and one of them was headed for Russia.
Right, but this time, I mean, he could fire something a lot less serious than a nuclear weapon, but it could turn out to be a lot more serious if he lobs it into South Korea with any accuracy, or Japan.
Then he will have started. He will start the war, and he'll get hit several times more roughly than he has delivered that missile, if he starts it. But I do think if you're in a conventional situation, I hate to say it, but you're going to, and he's about to start a war, I think you got to let them start it to show that there's the culprit, and what we're doing is responding.
Yeah.
But if it's nuclear, I would agree with you. You don't take the chance.
Yeah.
You certainly take the weapon out. But as for taking him out, I don't know who winds up in charge, his uncle or that lady that's apparently aunt.
Yeah, his aunt apparently has some influence
here. Or some crazed general.
Or the military. I think it would be the military. Absolutely.
But see, that's why I would hesitate. I would hesitate in doing something like that.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Hey, Pat, great to talk to you, sir. You're not too old. You're not too old for anything, and thank you.
You take it easy,
All right,
fella.
you too.
Right,
bye-bye. Pat Buchanan, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, Lord Michael Dobbs, former advisor to Margret Thatcher, and, of course, the author of House of Cards will join us. Don't go away, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show.